Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology, and today we are going to be talking about some of the most exciting features of Jupiter's upcoming entrance into the sign of Taurus, which is happening very soon here in the month of May. It's one of the most exciting transits of the year. It's a big, slow-moving planet changing sign, so just like Saturn entering Pisces or Pluto entering Aquarius, try to pay attention to when Jupiter's changing signs as well. Jupiter's going to spend a whole year in the sign of Taurus, and so we're doing several videos to just prepare us for this archetypal signature. And today I want to talk in particular about the kinds of personal transformations, spiritual and psychological transformations that Jupiter into Taurus may bring. And in order to do that, my wife Ashley is going to be joining us in a minute to talk about this as well. Ashley is a double Taurus that, in my mind, could be a poster child for some of the most wonderful things about Tauruses. I'm a Taurus rising. We've also learned from our shadows as Tauruses. And so we just thought it would be a fun one to tag team today, talking about the potentials of Jupiter into Taurus, which, by the way, was present when Ashley and I first got together and started our yoga studio together 12 years ago. So it's also like our relationship's Jupiter return, which is like kind of cool. So anyway, that's what we'll be talking about today. Before we get into it, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, share your comments. If you have Jupiter in Taurus or you have some insights about Jupiter in Taurus, we'd really like to hear from you. If you have a story to share about Jupiter's entrance into Taurus, use the hashtag grabbed and then tell us Jupiter into Taurus and then your story in the comments section. Or if you'd prefer, you can email it to us, grabbed@nightlightastrology.com. I'd like to do, after eclipse season and Jupiter entering Taurus, I'd like to gather some of those stories and do another storytelling episode, maybe later in the month of May. So your stories would be much appreciated. In the meantime, don't forget, if you go over to the website right now, nightlightastrology.com, there are a few things going on. One is that the new class, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, starts in June. If you go into the courses tab, click on the first year course, and you're going to scroll down to learn more about it. It starts on June 11th. There are 30 classes on the year. We have a ton of support built into the program, including a staff that will answer your questions in a discussion forum, as well as staff that leads breakout study sessions in between major units of study, tons of quizzes, bonus reading. You can ask me questions throughout the year. Everything's recorded, so you could attend the webinars live or participate at your own pace. Certification exam at the end is optional. Some people choose to take it because they want to go on and read for other people and start a professional practice. Some people take it just for themselves. At the bottom of the page, you'll find different enrollment options. The early bird payment saves you $500 off. There is a 12-month payment plan. And then last but not least, there is tuition assistance. So if you're in need of a little bit of support to make the program accessible financially, we hear that. We know that there are people of all different backgrounds out there financially, and we want to make sure that people aren't priced out of the program. So if that could help you, check it out. Make sure that you apply early for that. We do have limited spaces available. The other thing that I want to mention is that my reading schedule has changed. In early 2024, I book out about 10 or 11 months in advance. Starting in early 2024, I will now be seeing, I only have 4 client spots open per week, 2 on Mondays and 2 on Tuesdays. And so just to let people know who are thinking of booking or scheduling with me that my availability is going down a little bit. And that is because will also in early 2024 be launching the donation-based reading clinic, which will give a lot of opportunities for some of our graduates and alumni to read for other people. So, and that will help me attend to a huge amount of other stuff going on too. So my reading schedule is shrinking a little bit. So just make sure that you keep that in mind if you're thinking of booking a reading. The wait time may go up in the next couple of months a little bit. So, yeah. All right. Well, those are all of the announcements for today. I'm really excited to be talking about Jupiter into the sign of Taurus. And in order to do so, I'm going to welcome my wife, Ashley, to the stream. Hey, sweetheart.
Hi,
Funny.
babe.
Ashley's literally in the other room. We share office spaces. So if you were to walk, I could walk out and be on her camera in like 2 seconds. It's kind of funny. But anyway, we are the Taurus Club. Ashley's Cancer rising. I'm Taurus rising. I'm Cancer sun. She's Taurus sun. So we have a real Cancer Taurus household. Although both of our kids are fire signs. So that's interesting. But yeah. I want to, before we get into talking about this, and I'm going to also pick Ashley's brain as a double Taurus about some of these themes today and just ask her questions, because Ashley is a longtime clinical herbalist and yoga teacher. And I think the way that Ashley teaches has always been a really really deep and profound embodiment of Taurus medicine. That's one of the things the way that I would describe what she brings astrologically is she is a kind of Taurus medicine woman. So I thought, I really want her wisdom as like she will be a little bit of Jupiter into Taurus for us today. But before we get into that, I want to share my screen and show you guys the real-time clock so that we can take a look at this. So whoops, here I'm not on the wrong day. Let me move this around a little bit. So we're looking at the entrance of Jupiter into Taurus on May 16th. So that's coming up on Tuesday of next week. We are visiting this now to prepare ourselves for it. So here's Jupiter's entrance into the sign of Taurus. Shortly after Jupiter enters the sign of Taurus, we will see a new moon in Taurus as well. So a lot of Taurus energy coming up shortly for us. The new moon in Taurus will take place right here. Just back this up just a tiny bit so you can see it. So the new moon in Taurus is May 19th. So the 16th, Jupiter enters Taurus, followed by a new moon with the exalted moon in Taurus, co-present with Mercury, who's turned direct, with Uranus. So like Tauruses out there are getting some really big changes in their lives right now, and really significant. All the fixed signs as well, because you're going to get squares and oppositions from these energies. So we're going to talk in a separate video about the fact that as Jupiter enters Taurus, it will square Pluto right away, which is kind of a separate topic. We're going to talk now about the fact that between May of 2023 and May of 2024, for a whole year, we get the medicine and wisdom of Jupiter, who is the sage, the guru, the teacher. We get teachings in the sign of Taurus, which is the feminine domicile of Venus and the exaltation of the moon, and it is a solid earth sign. It's yin. So this is the sage coming into the temple of the goddess, and there are 5 amazing features of Jupiter's entrance into Taurus when we're considering the kinds of personal, psychological, and spiritual changes that are available to us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through them, the ones that we've come up with here. And I'm going to talk about why I think this is a Jupiter and Taurus lesson. But then I want to ask Ashley, throughout your life as a double Taurus, because each of these things have a special place in people who are Tauruses. These you'll know these very well. But just listening to Ashley talk about these and how they've made an impact on her life and her spiritual development, I think you guys will find really helpful, and I'll chime in a little bit too. All right, so the first one is that when Jupiter enters Taurus, we have an opportunity to recreate our rhythms. Now, by rhythms, I mean the day-to-day, let's call them biorhythms, bio being a reference to the earthiness of Taurus. We're talking about not just our mind or our mental habits or our emotional habits, but the way that those are also connected to our physical world and our physical habits. The opportunity to recreate our rhythms is there because Jupiter is a planet of possibilities and opportunities. And Taurus is a sign that has a lot to do with the establishment of security, peace, serenity, beauty, and the maintenance of those things. That they're not only there as temporary experiences, but that we learn to keep those experiences going somehow. So on that note, I would love, Ashley, if you would just tell us a little bit about, and I can speak a little bit to it too as we go along, but since you were a little kid, this has been the need for rhythms has been evident. What have you learned about rhythms as a double Taurus? Why are they important? What can we all learn about them? What could we all hope to take away from Jupiter into Taurus when it comes to our rhythms?
I love this. And when I saw you pulled up the time wheel and it had all that Taurus, oh my gosh, my heart was just like, yes. So I'm really excited for this upcoming transit. And in terms of rhythms, I think for Tauruses and for me, it's not about the rigidity of the rhythm, but about the smoothness of the rhythm. I think for me as a Taurus, I've always loved routines and ritual, but only if they're easy. You know what I mean? Like it's not the same as like a Virgo ritual where there's hard edges and lines and starts and stops and
Or Capricorn.
yeah, or Capricorn. Yeah. So for the Taurus rhythms for me, it's as one of my yoga teacher friends, Lauren Richardson would say, is like easy in, easy out. Like can we wake up easy, go get your coffee easy, drink your coffee easy, make the kids lunch easy. But it's like, making everything with ease. Cause I mean, for me as a Taurus, it's like I move slow, but when I'm in my best self, I'm really tactily enjoying and savoring all of the things that I'm doing. And that I think is the gift of Taurus energy, is if you can grab it, is let's make this enjoyable. Let's make these rhythms, these routines enjoyable, and let's keep it really smooth. So I think that to me is the tone, or like the mood of the rhythms. And I think ideally the rhythms follow the sun, and waking up when the sun rises, going to sleep when the sun sets. That's like the most natural rhythm our bodies are just attuned to. So if we can make small shifts in our lives so that we can go to bed and rise with the sun, things do seem to flow a little bit better, at least for me as a Taurus. I just
Mhm.
find that my energy, like, that's when I function at my best.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of ways to create those rhythms, but the rhythm is musical in Taurus.
Mm.
That's a word that comes to my mind, where we're trying to create rhythms so that life feels more artful.
Yes.
And how we create those could be they. It's surprising how much stability and like powerful stability is in making consistent small changes that are peaceful and enjoyable.
Yeah.
And so I think that people, when they think about Jupiter entering Taurus, and we talk about recreating rhythms, they're like, oh my God, I don't, please, no sermons about overhauling my whole life. And, I don't know, taking a cold shower at 3 a.m. and worshiping the
Ah,
sunrise or something. I mean, some people get overwhelmed,
sure.
and I think that even just the little changes, for example, if you might notice with Jupiter into Taurus that 2 cups of coffee is one too many,
Mm.
and you got to stick to one, and then you notice that the next 2 hours just consistently start being a little easier to manage. um, so I think that Jupiter in Taurus can enter our lives and just shine a spotlight on where we can feel like we're playing a little bit of jazz. There's a beat that's being kept, but we're doing better in improvisational spaces with making sure that it's easy in is easy out.
Yeah.
That
And I
that
think
comes to my mind as well.
Yeah, and I think one more thing too is like that's like the daily rhythm, but I think too for Taurus, it's like having that once a month we're going to go swing dance, or once a month we're going to go hear a Grateful Dead cover band, or whatever, like also having the larger rhythms, or every summer we go to this lake and we camp. But having those larger rhythms too that are enjoyable, I think that's also a place, if we're looking at the year ahead too, are like, what are some Taurian pleasurable activities that you can schedule in as well?
I am going swing dancing. I will have everybody know.
You're a good sport. We're gonna have fun because I'm not a swing dancer either.
I'm stoked. If I get to dance with you, I'm good.
Oh.
So so I feel like the other thing about recreating our rhythms is paying attention to what we're getting out of what we're associating with. I think Jupiter and Taurus can be um, can give feedback right away and saying, look, you associate with your cell phone, with TV, with the internet, with whatever it is, and we run in cycles with those things. Oh, spend 10 minutes, scroll, 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 click, click, click. That patterns and deeply ingrained habits can open up and change. And part of how they do that is we start to receive feedback. For example, as we're making this, we're in a Mercury retrograde in Taurus. Jupiter enters Taurus as Mercury is turning direct in Taurus. Maybe another way of looking at it is that you can realign your nervous system,
Mm.
and just ask the question, what's given me a smoother ride here? And how can I, if I'm associating, if the habits and rituals and routines that I have in my life aren't giving something good in return, if they're just emptying or draining me, you might become more aware of that. And at first, that's not exactly easy. Remember that Jupiter is going to be co-present with Uranus in the sign of Taurus. So the ability to get feedback about what's jolting us versus what's giving us a smooth ride.
Mm.
That's also really, I think that's really, really valuable. Well, let's go to number 2, which is expansion through focused attention on something you've already started. Jupiter's been in Aries for the past year. We all know Aries, as a cardinal fire sign of spring, loves to start and initiate things. But then we got this last anaretic degree eclipse, the 29th degree of Aries. And then one of the ways I described it was the beginning of the end of something. And another way of putting that might be to say that, look, we've been in a phase of life where we have maybe, for example, there's been lots of expansion, lots of starting of things. And as Jupiter moves into Taurus after that last eclipse at the last degree of Aries, we might be asking, it's time to root in and cultivate things at a deeper level that I've already started. How do I go from casting my net, wide and in a lot of different directions, or spreading seeds all over the place, to saying there's just these 3 things, or there's just these few things, and I'm going to focus my attention in on developing them and making them my richness, my happiness. As a Taurus, again, same question goes back to, I would say that Taurus is one of the more naturally devoted signs. What does it mean to a Taurus? How does it feel to a Taurus to be developing and holding things, aside from just not being able to let go of things that you love, which is definitely a Taurus thing too. But like, what is it about holding, developing things? Like, what is it that gives joy about that?
It's not always joyful, though. I mean, I think when you care for something deeply, I forget who it was that said that, the price we pay for love is grief or is pain. So, I don't think,
It's like the polar opposite sign of Scorpio is baked in that sense, the impermanence of
yeah.
things.
Yeah, but I do think, though, like, I'm just thinking about my garden and all the plants in this house, and it's like, yes, it was exciting when I bought them and I brought them home and I found the perfect sunny spot. But there's also joy in checking their leaves and noticing the soil when it gets low. They need more potting soil, and this one needs a little bit more light, and making those subtle adjustments. I mean, to me, and I don't know if this is a Taurus thing, but the world is animate, like everything's alive. And so everything I'm tending, even my space, even my office space, the room is alive. And so as I move the pillows and make sure things are tidy, it's like I'm caring for the energy of the space, and um that cultivation of the care um is that part is very enjoyable, I think. And then the fruits of that labor is watching that plant flower for the first time in like 5 years, or watching it shoot out little babies and then repotting those. So but it is a slow, careful process, once you've selected what it is you're going to tend to. um I don't know if that does that answer
Yeah.
the
Well, I
question.
mean, you were, I mean, we've talked about your chart a bit before, so people who've watched some previous episodes know this, but you have a few planets in Aries as well. How would you contrast the energy of Aries that likes to start things so much with the energy of Taurus?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Aries burns hard and bright and then burns out fast. So, I think that's a contrast to the slow, steady endurance of Taurus. And I think the things that really, the thing for me is that if it hits my heart and if I can see life in it, I'm like committed. I'm like, I've got you. You've got me. Like we're in this together. The Aries in me says, okay, I got you this far. You're on your own. It's like, I got you started now, continue
Yeah.
on, good luck. But I think the Taurus part of me really attaches from my heart deeply into
Hmm.
things and
Yeah.
wants to see them thrive and wants
Yeah.
to mother them. I think there's a mothering quality to Taurus that if we can tap into that, and look at the things that we're choosing, whatever it is from that big cast, that net that you cast, whatever the things are, you're like, I really want to draw my attention to this, is like, treat it as if like you're a mother tending a small child. Like what would be the quality of care and the quality of patience too? You have to have a lot of patience, I think, and that's a natural gift of Taurus when you're tending something.
Yeah.
for a
There's
long
a
period. Yeah.
there's a kind of symbiosis that Taurus invites. It says, don't just start something, but become sort of symbiotically joined and merged with it, and it maintains you, and you maintain it.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
and that's the feeling of the Great Mother, the exaltation of the moon. That's part of Taurus, I think. Well, the thing you said that leads us to point three is that the process itself can be this place of joy. So going into that a little bit more, and I mean, obviously, as someone who cares for plants and plant medicine, you can use that those analogies all day long with Taurus: plants, gardens, caring for living things. You said something recently, and I can't remember if this was in another video we did or not. But I loved it, and it was that you had this insight that you needed to care for the living things first,
Mm-hmm.
and that was this value that brought not only joy but kind of like safeguards a lot of other things in your life too. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, we had been out of town for a few weeks and I got home and like there was a million things that needed to be done and I was just completely overwhelmed and I don't know, I'm sure people can relate. Like you just have so many things you have to do, you don't want to do any of them. You're like I'm just going to lay on the couch cuz I don't know where to start. And so this like just I got this insight and it was tend the living things first. And I was like, that makes sense because, like, the laundry and the dishes and all of those other things can wait. But, like, my plants need water. You know, my dogs need to go outside. My husband needs a hug. My kids need me to take their shoes off and help them go to the potty. You know, like, there's things that those things are most important. And so, ever since then, yeah, it's like when I get to that overwhelmed state, I think of what are the living things and mine included, you know, and I think that was like, yeah, I need water. I am dehydrated from traveling too. So it's like, you know, what are all of the needs of the living things, including myself? And the process bringing joy is um, you get instant feedback when you tend the living things.
Mm,
Um, it's not always what like the plants didn't like say hooray, but I felt like a relief once I knew that they were tended. So, but yeah, I think in terms of like the process itself, that kind of goes back to the first question, which is just having that ease with it,
hmm.
that if you're really present while you're doing things, it's hard not to feel joyful. It's like
Yeah.
hard not to be feeling like you're in the Tao or in the flow. Um, but if you're disconnected and you're in 10 places mentally, it's really hard to find it in the process.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I will issue a qualifier, which is that I don't just need hugs, I need Ashley's hugs because they are the best. But but yeah, everyone around here likes Ashley's hugs, the
I
dogs,
love
the
giving
kids.
hugs. They're my favorite.
So yeah, the I think the idea here with Jupiter entering Taurus is that for a lot of us, we think of, it's a cliche, but it's like we think of the final product that we'll get from putting the work into something. And Jupiter in Taurus is like an opportunity to tangibly feel and experience the benefits and joy of being in the process of working towards something.
Mhm.
Um, People romantically look at the image of a farmer or someone who lives on the land. And why do people get so attracted, especially people in the city? They get so attracted to the picture of someone living on the land. It's, if you're real about it, there's a lot of work involved in living on a farm or living on land or whatever. But why is it that the image is so attractive? It's because you're imagining, I think most of us anyway, we imagine that someone is happy, that,
Mm.
that they're happy in the process of tending and caring for a farm and animals and life, and that there's something about their symbiotic union with the process of life that is joyful and uplifting. And so this image of the farmer or of the bull, it's attractive to us because it's a fecund image. It's not about results. It's about someone looking like they have a sense of belonging and at homeness in the ever moving rhythms of life. And that's very, very appealing to us because there's something, that image makes our nervous systems just relax.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Goes into number 4, which is safeguarding serenity. This is something, of course, that I think anyone who's familiar with 12-step programs has probably heard before. But Jupiter in Taurus, the way that I would put it is that Jupiter in Taurus could be like a few different 12-step slogans that you may have heard before. For example, like one day at a time, or even first things first, or something like that. And I'm no expert on these things, but what I know is that Jupiter in Taurus is like a guardian angel that says, there's really nothing more important than just doing your best today and trying to make today a successful day in terms of peace, and just, doing your best, forgiving yourself, and just showing up and kind of doing the work of a day. And it's like in that way, our lives are like little hobby farms, and like, can you just be the farmer in the field of your life today?
Yeah.
And there's tremendous wisdom in that simplicity, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think even the word, if we could just even say the word serenity, or check in and say, how is my serenity? I think just even having consciousness around that as a possibility in a day is huge for a lot of people. It's like, oh, I could be serene. But I think one of the things that's, at least for me, is so helpful is identifying the things that bring me out of serenity. It's like, if you're going to safeguard something, it's like you don't build a fence unless you know what you're trying to keep out and what you're trying to keep in. And so if you're trying to keep in serenity, how tall does that fence need to be, and what are you protecting it from? And, it might be social media. It might be, binging Netflix. It could be certain relationships that are outdated, or friendships that are not serving you. But, we have to really be able to look at the things that are taking our serenity away, so that we can cultivate that little seed of serenity that can be fragile in the beginning. But it's cool. I think, I've been in a 12-step program in Al-Anon for almost 4 years now. And while I'm not certainly perfect at it, I feel like I'm more and more able to notice when I'm slipping out of it, and to catch myself, and to say, oh, I'm doing that thing again, and my serenity is being lost. Or, with small kids, you can't always control what they're going to do, but I can control the situations I put myself in with them. Like, we're not going to the jump house. Like, that's not going to, what can we do? Like, let's go for a nature walk. Right. So it's also like making choices that, at least create some parameters that are going to be more beneficial for you. And if you have a family, your family. Because if mama ain't happy, or like, ain't no
Ain't
one
nobody
happy.
happy. It's true. Yeah. I think, something when Ashley and I, first, this is our Jupiter return of our relationship. We've been together 12 years. And when we first started dating and we started a yoga studio together, and we shared our rhythms. We went to bed at the same time. We had an evening ritual. We did some rituals when we woke up in the morning, and then whatever happened throughout the day, it was like easy in, easy out. We would end our day together and begin our day together, and then the ebb and flow of that closeness throughout the day is just part of work and life and so forth. But that's also something, in other words, this wisdom is something we can apply to relationships. Ashley and I, as you guys know, we have a couple of kids. Our rhythms got smashed for a little bit, and what's been interesting is, as Jupiter has been returning, this recent Mercury retrograde, Ashley and I have returned to some of the rhythms that we really hadn't had since our kids came along. And it's immediately noticeable how much better we communicate, we solve problems, we laugh, and it's little things, right? It's like, so I think that the other thing to remember is that, Taurus is the sign of Venus, and creating harmony is a social experiment, right? It's a experience. So the other thing we can think about is our serenity also has to do with the way we care and tend for our relationships. Now, it's something I noticed about myself was that some of the reasons that our rhythms got off, for I think for both of us, I think you would agree, is that we both were like, you get comfortable in taking care of yourself and safeguarding yourself from the stresses of parenting, and you do so in different ways. And
Yeah.
then your rhythms can get out of sync, and you can think, well, you should come over to my rhythm that I've established to protect my sanity after having kids. No, you should
Mhm.
come over to my rhythm, right? And eventually, I think in relationships, it doesn't matter who takes a step, but you find if one person takes a step toward the other person, that other person will take a step. And then before you know it, you have your rhythms in a maybe just even slightly better place. And the result of that can flower out and be pretty magnificent. So, one thing that I would say about safeguarding serenity is although it's a very personal thing, it's also a social thing in the way
Yeah.
that it could be your kids, it could be your spouse or a lover or a friend or your social life. But we can create those rhythms in those ways too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you want to add anything to that?
Oh, I just had this image of like, like the idea of oh, what is it called in music? You have like a string, like, a sitar, how it has a string, a resonant, like a string that vibrates next to it. So
Mhm.
it's like, in your relationships, whether they're romantic or just friendships, it's like, if your rhythms are synced up and one person plays, their string is plucked, the strings next to it will resonate and there'll be a resonance that creates real beauty and the sound is really, really um, really synced up and very beautiful. So I just had that image pop in because I feel like that's what's happened to us as we found our rhythms. It's like these strings. Like I'll play one and then it'll sync up with you and it'll resonate with yours. And then but if we're too far away and our rhythms are too disconnected, then that resonance can't happen.
Yeah, and I think that Jupiter into Taurus brings one of the key words for Jupiter is redemption,
Mm,
redeeming things. So Jupiter in a sign of harmony, redeeming things, can also be about getting back to resonating with people and things that are good for you.
yeah.
And I just couldn't believe, like, Ashley and I just making some really simple shifts in our biorhythms to get back onto the same page. And, I'm like, gosh, it's funny how easy some of those things are, but they're not easy until they're easy. You know what I mean? Like, for
Right.
whatever reason, they're hard until the moment that they're easy. You feel like it's a mile to make a step until you do, and then you look at it, it feels like it was a 2-inch step. What was I doing? But the idea here anyway being that we can change our rhythms to also resonate with people and things around us better. And then finally, what does real abundance mean to you? And we'll keep this one really simple. A lot of us define success and happiness through all sorts of images in our mind. We don't often stop to say, what does a feeling of, like my cup is overflowing, right? Like, what does that actually feel like? Not what does it look like,
Hmm.
in terms of like status or a way that something I want to have or, a position or, I mean, maybe there's some of those things too, but I think a lot of the times we skip past what does real abundance mean to me on the level of my heart, soul, and like feeling body, which is something that Jupiter in Taurus can invite us into. We always think of Jupiter in Taurus as like wealthy and rich and fecund, and it's the transit that means that someone's going to get a facelift or a Ferrari or something. It's like, okay, yeah, that's so stereotypical, but it's also there's an invitation to be like, is this fool's gold or is this my heart's gold?
Hmm. So yeah, I think, from the double Taurus position, it is very simple actually. Um, I think the main thing is, do I feel solid and serene and content in myself and what I'm able to provide others and what others are able to provide for me? Like that image of the farm. Like, is it a productive farm? But not productive because we want cash, but because it's fulfilling its purpose. A
Mm.
productive farm is successful because it's a successful farm. And um, I guess for me, at least, when I think of abundance, it's like health. You know, like, am I healthy? Do I have energy? Have I put enough resources into myself to have health so that I can tend to others and love others and, do the work that I'm here to do? Um, and yeah, like, what is the quality of my connections? What is the
Hmm.
quality of my connections to others? So yeah, that idea of even like a productive herb garden is what like my mind is going to, like, have I done all of the things necessary to make this flourish? And as a result of its flourishing, am I taking the time to receive the gifts?
Yeah. Yeah. The love you put in is the love you receive. In
Mm,
so many ways, Jupiter and Taurus is like you will get out of your garden what you put into it. The garden as life, as the psyche, as your relationships. And the opportunity is like, in my mind, spiritually, the opportunity is like, pour yourself in, and you will find that the harvest is super bountiful when you pour authentic love and sincerity into the things in your life, the people in your life, yourself, your health, that you'll find that there's an abundant feedback that comes up. And that's maybe the real, but in order to do that, we have to say, what can I give to from the heart? What do I want to give to from the heart? And where do I want to receive from the heart? And that's, for some of us, that may be a process of clarifying that as we go along in the next year.
yeah, and I think one thing that's been really helpful for me, I'm not an artist, but has been art, like that question itself, what does abundance mean to me? Grab a piece of blank paper, grab some markers or colored pencils, and just start drawing. And sometimes through that creative process of drawing or collaging, if you really are afraid of utensils like that,
That would be me.
but I think that opening up those other parts of your mind and the images, I think that's a great way into that question if you're not sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here with me in the room outside of this door.
Yes. Oh,
And
thank you for having me. I always
yeah,
love when I get to come on and chat with you.
yeah, it's so nice to have you here. And I hope that everyone was able to, um, one of the reasons that I've always been wildly in love with my wife is because I'm just attracted to the way that she thinks and processes life. And so I just knew that her double Taurus energy would be kind of fun to have here today to talk about Jupiter and Taurus. So yeah, we all really appreciate you. And yeah, for those of you guys who are looking to get a transcript of today's talk, I forgot to mention earlier that you can find the transcript for today's talk on the website, nightlightastrology.com. And as ever, if you have any comments to share or wisdom of your own on Jupiter into Taurus, would love to hear from you guys. Don't forget to drop a comment in the comment section. And yeah, it'll be great to check in, do some more videos on Jupiter into Taurus, maybe some check-ins along the way as the year goes on. And maybe we'll have Ashley back and talk maybe at some point about some herbs that you could use for Jupiter into Taurus as well.
I love that.
All right. Well, take it easy, everyone. We will see you again next time. Bye.